I'm here, but I'm getting myself situated, so sorry.
No problem at all. Oh, Jonathan, before I forget, I know that Diane is probably gonna follow up with the Economic and Community Development Subcommittee on what we discussed last meeting. So she may want you to pull up the work plan, like that Excel sheet, just a heads up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you want, you can email it to either me or her too, and we can.
No, I can. No, we can pull it up. I was just like, I'm wondering what the questions are going to be.
I just wanted to let you know, just in case, like in the meeting, she was like, "Can you pull it up?" and you had to scramble to do it.
Thank you. That's very respectful. Appreciate it.
So it looks like we're still waiting for a few more members. So we'll probably get started in 2 or 3 minutes. I think the change from Tuesday to Monday is probably throwing folks off.
I do have to say, I do like it when you send out the meeting calendar invites.
Oh, so, good. Okay.
So this one didn't come on our calendar. So I luckily had, had on my calendar. So I don't know if others are as sloppy with their calendars as I am.
That's weird because I got invites from people accepted it. So let me make sure.
It just didn't come through as a meeting invite. So I don't know, but that's
weird. Okay, I'll follow up on my end. So we can get started once we have one more person. I think we just need 5, so we have a quorum.
That's sad. We only have 4.
Well, I got invites from mostly everyone that said they'd be here. So
depending on what people do for a living, also it is month end. So
I was gonna say it's Monday, so like for me, getting here was like it was. I was like, I gotta go. So probably people just like going in.
what was that again? You had to. Yeah, I gotta go.
I gotta go. It was like that.
Just like that. Okay. I like to work. I have to work on my Brown Act patience because part of me is like, "Are you here?" But we can't do that.
I know that Mito said he'd be running a little late.
Yeah. Well, Jorge, do you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance when we get there?
I will pass for this time. I cannot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put it up on the screen too, if that makes it easier.
If you want to.
Yeah, I would pass. I would pass for this. I'm right now just signing in and trying to figure it out this new tablet.
No problem. I respect that. Technology can be a friend as much of an enemy. Task Force Member Morton, would you be interested in doing the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Yeah.
I will say that I once had to do it on Jay Leno and I forgot the under God part. So maybe we do put it up.
I'll have it pulled up.
So many questions.
Do you remember that show Jaywalking?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Segment?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I know
yeah.
it. Yeah. And then I totally didn't know it.
Yeah, sorry everyone. We'll just give people maybe a few more minutes and then we'll get started.
Depending on what night it was, it could have been a night where I was watching and you were one of the bloopers. Who would have known?
I was also like 12. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So recognition fact. I would not probably recognize you, I don't think. So that was what, like 8 years ago? About right.
Exactly, Jonathan. Exactly.
How long do we typically wait for quorum?
Well, good question. Because I know that there were a few folks who actually accepted the meeting request. I would say at least to like 6:10, 6:15, just because I know they're coming. But yeah, I think we should be fine. I just know we definitely can't start without a quorum at least. So we just need one more person to kind of call the meeting to order, and also to take action on things. I'm assuming that the date change probably.
Sorry, should have turned off the sound and the video for that, but
No problem.
one of my employees was leaving, so.
No problem.
Oh, wait. Oh, actually, hold on one second.
So I believe we have 5 with Shayla. So we can get started. Maybe I'll give her a second just to make sure she's logged on. I think we're okay. We can call the meeting to order if you want, Jonathan.
All right. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Happy February, almost March. And this is the February 28th discussion. So with that said, I'd also like to turn it over to Task Force Member Morton to walk us through the Pledge of Allegiance. Jasmine, can you display on the screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Task Force Member Morton.
Oh, I think
I'm ready. Yes.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, yes. That rings true every time I hear it. So with that said, let's move on to the next agenda item. Sorry, I'm going slow. Jasmine, can you please walk us through the roll call, please?
Sure. Task Force Chair Jonathan Wilson.
Here, present.
Task Force Member Krupa Desai. Here. Task Force Member Shannon Morton.
Here.
Task Force Member Jorge Seprak.
Here.
And Task Force Member Demure.
Present.
Should we note who is not present?
Sure. So Vice Chair Daniel Zamilpa, Task Force Member Marcus Wilson, Task Force Member Giselle Washington, and Task Force Member Mito Aviles.
Thank you. So approval. So move on to the next item for approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'm happy to move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. Jasmine, can you walk us through the vote, please?
Sure. Chair Wilson,
Yay.
Task Force Member Desai,
Yay, approve.
Task Force Member Seprak,
Yes, approved.
Task Force Member Morton,
Approve.
Task Force Member Demure.
Approved.
Motion passes.
Excellent. So now is the time for us to move through public comment. So this time is set aside for public comment. The public is given the opportunity to address the Social Justice Task Force on any item within its responsibility. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Social Justice Task Force cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes, and time may be limited or increased based on the discretion of the task force. This public comment period is to address the Social Justice Task Force on agenda items and or items of general interest within the jurisdiction of the Social Justice Task Force. If there's anyone who didn't sign up to speak and wishes to provide comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. At this time, do we have anybody who wishes to speak? Given that I recognized all the names as being task force members or adjacent to, I believe we can probably move on to the next item unless someone wants to speak on behalf of their responsibilities within La Soledad. All right. All right. So moving on, perhaps this is an opportunity for us to discuss the different or take that back. Sorry, I almost went somewhere else. Let's go to item number 6, which is finalize the actionable recommendations brought forward by the Economic Community Development Subcommittee. So with that said, I will go ahead and share my screen again so we can talk through some additional follow-up questions. And thank you, Diane, for joining us again. We are excited to have you. Oops, I'm not able to share.
You should have capability now.
Yep. All right. So you want me to enlarge this a little bit more? Oops, there we go. Yikes. So I believe, Dan, that you had additional comments that you wanted to, or questions that you had.
No, thank you for sharing the detail. Yeah, just asking if you all could update us on your any additional thoughts you had since the last conversation, which was excellent. Thank you for being so willing to walk all of us through the recommendation and thoughts and process. And then perhaps if there's time, also hear similarly from the Public Safety Subcommittee.
Yeah, I mean, we walked through who we wanted to hear from in our last committee meeting, as well as talked about the disposition around the RFP and kind of some challenges we're having with that. So, with that said, I would love to invite task force member Jameer to maybe speak.
Hi, so is this in reference to the challenge in terms of?
This is more of like a reference to our meeting. The reason I'm asking you to speak is partly because I think people probably hear my voice all the time, but I welcome your opinions, and I think it'd be good to kind of give understand your synopsis of how you think the last meeting went and where we're headed.
Well, I thought there was really great conversation. I think we were uncovering some really great things. I know in particular, I did bring up some of the challenges in terms of, maybe how smaller BIPOC companies learn about some of the funding sources, and also just in terms of like how the funding or the grant process works. I asked for assistance from the city last year for an event. It was for a sponsorship, and the event was in November. And I just received the check for the event literally this week or last week. And so I think for smaller companies, that process should be streamlined to be a little easier, and to actually work like a grant or a sponsorship and not a reimbursement.
Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely. So Diane, to that point, so there are elements of what Task Force Member Demir just talked about that we wanted to kind of bake in there, as well as we actually identified some key people and provide that list to Jasmine. So I can't really name them off the top of my head, but we did kind of have a list of people that we wanted to hear from, just so we can ask additional questions and make sure we have a good sense of understanding on what possible solutions might work, and also make sure that we aren't duplicating anything that's already been done in the past that may not have been successful. So hopefully we can learn from what's been done from the city in the past, and also we can add to that. We can be the and to that. So that's the direction we're taking. Also keep in mind too that we built our initial recommendations partly off of what the city has already come to us with ideas around. So we want to make sure that we're partnering going forward, though, completely 100% in lock force.
Yeah, thank you for that update. And I would echo what Task Force Member Demir offered as an add to the process, because that's such a legitimate add in concept to be able to apply and receive financial support is helpful. At the same time, it is a barrier to accessing that help if in fact the time frame for reimbursement is as significant as what has been described. In addition to that, I would say that the suggestion of allowing that to be a grant upfront as opposed to a reimbursement protocol could be extremely helpful to overcoming that barrier to participation as well. So I think those are two very strong adds to build into your recommendation.
Yeah. And on top of that, and so thank you for that. And on top of that too, we'd like for that dedicated city webpage to be exactly that, where we are transparent. So in saying that it's going to be a grant, let's be clear that it's going to be that you will be reimbursed for expenses, and that it could take 6 to 12 weeks after the event has occurred. So that also, I think, number one, you want to work on that. But then number two, if that is going to be the case, we need to be transparent about that.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
And just one additional thing as well. When I followed up about the money, they told me that I needed to furnish receipts for the cost for that sponsorship. So again, it really isn't a grant. It is more of a reimbursement.
Can I raise my hand? How do we do this?
Yes. Task Force Member Morton, go ahead.
Hi. So to just add upon what Shayla is saying, I actually just did the Black History Month as well with the city. You do need your receipts, but also in the fine print, it's like, if you end up making any money, you have to then give that back. So it's a very weird, I think if just going over in totality, if you're going to sponsor a Black or person of color event, this is what you present, what you need. Maybe we're just going to give you what you need, and that's it. Because if you actually read your contract, it's pretty intense. Did you have that in your contract, Sheila?
Help me understand. So the sponsorship are supposed to be a grant to help you put on the event. However, if you make any profits, the profits must come back to the city. Is that?
That's what I'm understanding. Yes, I do donations only, so it's not like I'm profiting. I think that's like maybe a little loophole. But let's say you were to have like a vendor fee or anything like that, that would come out of the total budget deduction, and it wouldn't go toward your nonprofit or your business. So let's say you have a vendor fair of 20 Black vendors and you charge them $100 for the space, which is very normal, or 10% of sales, that would all have to go back to the city. It would be deducted from your total budget.
Oh, okay.
something, I think, too. I think if the city is wanting to sponsor things, which is great, and we love that, and to work with people, maybe you have to carve out that budget and that's your X amount for that, or that's your grant for that. And that's what it is, because it is a lot of work on top of permitting and having to do all the loopholes and all the receipts. It's a lot of work for small businesses.
So, and also you're unable to do certain things because you're spending the time doing that. So you're not
Yeah.
being paid for that time, in other words. So it's sponsorship versus partnership is where you're going with this. So I think that's
Yeah.
what we want to go with.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it.
Okay.
Chair, I think Andy Lovano from the city.
Oh yeah, I would love to hear from you. Yes, Ms. Lamana. I'm sorry, I don't know if your pronouns are she or hers, but I said that.
Thank you. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I just wanted to clarify, I appreciate Shannon and Shayla's comments, and I think that they are both touching on important issues that the city can definitely improve upon. And we are currently in the process of working on a more defined city co-sponsorship policy. So I think this feedback is good, and it's something that we can definitely incorporate. So in terms of the social justice task forces, and tying it in here, I think maybe you can think about what kind of recommendation would be good. Maybe encourage BIPOC owned nonprofits or businesses to participate in the city's co-sponsorship program, and provide some recommendations on that. I just kind of wanted to frame it in terms of what the city is already doing and what they're talking about, so we can kind of all be on the same page with the language. But that's all. I just wanted to give that context and say thanks for those comments.
I appreciate that comment. Perhaps maybe this is an opportunity for us to acknowledge what the city is doing to change some of these things, and we can maybe use this page to be an advocate of the fact that things are changed or have been changed, right? So if that policy is changed or modified, perhaps there's an opportunity for us to have a section saying, update, or we recognize in the past it went like this, but now it's working like this. So, I mean, I think, I don't know if calling it to the past always actually helps for the future, but something along those lines in a more advocacy way. So.
In the protocol that we've been talking about, that would be a perfect example of what we would entitle an endorsement. So you've learned, here are some things already underway that the city is proposing to change, and we endorse those changes. In addition to that, we would like to recommend these things to even further increase accessibility to what's being offered. So in most cases, your recommendations will have, a couple of limbs or layers to it. An endorsement, an additional new idea, or those kinds of things.
Yeah, I love that. Any additional comments? Questions? Oh, we had great. Oh, we have task force member Avalos on the call now, and we happen to be talking about the social justice task force, or subtask force, the economic development and subcommittee. That was really poorly worded, but the economic development subcommittee, and we're talking about the work plan that we initially put forth. Question for you is, do you want to add anything in terms of your opinion on the last meeting? Task force member Jamir provided her updates just kind of around the grant process and just what her experience was. So I don't know if you have additional comments you'd like to make with respect to that meeting.
in regards to the time, the lag in time when it comes to getting funding from grants. I mean,
Yeah, that's what task force member Jameer talked about.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if you want to add any tidbits to the direction of that meeting, or you know.
I mean, I feel like, the one tidbit, or the biggest takeaway that I felt like I got from that meeting is the fact that there is a level of frustration that we're all feeling right now, being that we've been doing this for quite some time and feel like I know progress takes time, and, obviously we're all very hopeful for it. But at the same time, I feel, it felt like in our last meeting, we're just kind of ready to get to work and to start doing and put that sort of work foot forward.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of put on at a holding pattern right now, based off of what council is sort of advising us to do as a task force.
So you're hitting on something that I would love to kind of actually just really shed some light on. You're hitting on the RFP process, where we were frustrated with the fact that we have yet to hear from anybody about whether or not we can start working on the RFP process and just understand how it works. We just want we're not looking to make changes to it. We're just looking to understand it, right? So I think it's definitely one of those things where we could. Yes, I side with you and with Task Force Member Jameer in that we would like for that topic to be broached with the city council within the next meeting, because as of right now, we are receiving roadblocks and we're unable to be successful in making the changes that need to be made for BIPOC businesses to become suppliers, better suppliers and better partners with the city of West Hollywood. So if you're listening to this, council members, we would appreciate your help as soon as possible and to have this on the agenda for March. Thank you.
And again, as a reminder, I know I mentioned it during the subcommittee meeting, but staff will definitely make sure to keep all of the task force members, especially the economic and community development subcommittee members, will let you know when Mayor Pro Tem Shine and Councilor Erickson's item will be brought forward to council. So that way all of you are aware.
We're all dependent on it. So yes, thank you. We just want to do our work. That's all we want. Thank you for reminding me of that. So hard on a Monday sometimes. Anyone else want to make a comments or questions? All right, good. So at this time, if there's no additional comments, should we move on to item number 7? So this is about developing the actionable recommendations from the Social Justice Task Force subcommittees. And this is additional comments, I believe, from Diane. Would love to have you lead us on this, item number 7 on the agenda.
Okay. This is an item where actually I was pleased to also have a chance to sit with the Public Safety Subcommittee, and they had some phenomenal recommendations in the developmental process. And so I'm wondering if task member Desai would be willing to share with the larger group some things under contemplation, as well as some additional areas of info gathering that you all have been working with staff to move forward.
Yeah, sure. So I think now I don't know what we've talked about in committee. And
I have notes too, but that
Okay.
helps. So if you want, I can always jump, because you are the only one
I know where's
representing the subcommittee tonight.
No, I guess, and I appreciate that, Jasmine. I think what I'm worried about is I don't even know what we've said so far in terms of the things that we were exploring topically or not. So maybe I'll walk back a little bit. I think among the issues that we wanted, that as a group, we wanted to focus on, that we thought directly impacted community members of color in particular, not just in West Hollywood, but, as we've seen in patterns around the country, were related to the war on drugs and the over-incarceration of people of color for nonviolent cannabis-related crimes, especially since that is now legal here. And then second, for the criminalization of sex work, which again disproportionately impacts people of color, trans people of color, and actually statistically, the criminalization of sex work has led to increasing crime, and I'm happy to cite statistics on that front as well. So I can walk you through what is the things that we've been thinking about on both of those topics, if that's useful. What is the best approach here so that folks can digest, given that I'm just voiceovering this stuff?
Yeah, I would suggest if you could walk us through thoughts under consideration as it relates to cannabis based repudiation and balance, and then thoughts that the subcommittee is addressing regarding the decriminalization of sex work as well.
Sure. And I think the one piece of additional context that I'll share is that we were grappling with what is within our authority, or what is within the city's authority, and trying to get clarification on when we make recommendations, what recommendations are actually within our scope. So I'll give you a sense of sort of directionally what we're thinking about, but I want to name that the contours of that and what we'd recommend will shift based on what actually is within our scope. So as it relates to cannabis related offenses, I think what we were talking about, among other things, were expanding legal services and resources to folks for providing, expungement or reduced offenses for nonviolent cannabis related crimes, and potentially proposing a reparations tax for all cannabis related sales to offset the impacts of that have been inflicted on communities of color being incarcerated or penalized in any way for crimes that have now ultimately been deemed to be, that were illegal at the time but are legal now, given the unfair targeting of these particular groups. So those are the two things that we're talking about there. And in the context of sex work, we want to support and endorse legislation and/or the actual decriminalization of sex work, and expanding legal services and resources similarly to provide expungement or reduced offenses for nonviolent sex work related crimes to the extent that is possible, and potentially explore the endorsement of legislation that does impose some penalty for, frankly, for trafficking and pimping and sort of the harmful effects of sex work that is not regulated appropriately.
Mm-hmm. And could you say just a little bit about where your conversation then prompted additional information or research that you wanted to gather to support those two areas?
Yeah, so I think the thing that we're struggling with right now is we have analogous stats in various communities, and getting sort of targeted statistics in terms of impacts for our residents, in particular in West Hollywood, historical data, current data, is an area that still feels like a blind spot for us in terms of who in our community, have been impacted by either of these two areas specifically. We also are very keen on hearing from somebody with lived experience in either of these categories, but also recognize the challenge in securing the safety and comfort of somebody to be able to speak publicly on their experiences and in what context we actually can engage. What are other things that we talked about?
Perhaps engaging and asking for presentations from advocacy groups who are connected, even as it relates to a lot of current efforts in the reentry.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I think, to the extent that we can't hear from those directly with lived experience in a public setting like this, hearing from other cities and advocacy groups about what are they doing, what are they advocating for, what success rates have been. There is legislation, up on the docket at the state, what is the legislation that we want to recommend that our city endorse more explicitly.
Yeah.
Those are all things that we've been. Is that what you think?
I believe that we have a question from Task Force member Sephiroth. Do you want to speak?
Well, sometimes, minorities, we are target for the police, and they are trying to put us, make us, well, how can I say, make things that they are not true. I say this for experience. I'm not afraid to say it was like 20 years ago when I just moved to this country. I wasn't even speaking English. I was just 1 week to be arrived in West Hollywood. The police just stopped me. Actually, no, the police didn't stop me. What happened? I was coming to the avenue to go because I asked my friend. They told me, "Oh, you wanna go to the class? Just wait for any bus that they're gonna take you straight over there to the class." I said, "Okay," because I live in Fairfax, Santa Monica. So I was waiting there when the police, undercover police, stopped his car, and he asked me if I want to ride. I couldn't speak well, but I knew what was a ride. So I said, okay. So I get in the car, and after that, he started talking and talking and talking and talking. That I just hear that he was saying something like $50 or whatever that he was coming from work. I didn't understand well. So I was saying, okay, yes. Oh, hi, yes. So finally, 3 blocks after that, 4 police cars come and stop, and they arrest me because of prostitution. I was like, what? So something things that happen, in this city, for what? Just because my race, because I was not that person, but they were trying to make it up, They took me to the police station. I spent the night in the police station. It was a very bad experience, terrible. So after that, I said, I have to be careful not anybody right, but why they have to put you as a criminal, something that you are not doing. They try to make you get in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just because of my color, because I was like a shock. Wow.
Jorge, would you mind? I think your microphone is maybe a little bit low. Maybe hold it up closer to we just want to make sure we're hearing everything.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, that happened that time. It was 20 years ago. I was just arriving. Oh my God. I had the worst experience in my life having that. And I'm afraid to say it because, I was not prostitute. But they told me, you are under arrest for prostitution. I said, but I'm not doing anything. So even innocent people getting any weird situation and they trying to put you as a criminal. So it's all these things that, we need to support our community because it's just people of colors, Latinos, different races. It's just, we've been targeted, for no reason. Like I say, I was never in my life I was in that situation. I couldn't believe it. But after that, they took me to court. I had to go to court, pass for all the things. So they hear the tape, because it was a tape. And clearly they can tell that I was not soliciting any sex or whatever. So after that, they let me go, but they let me go with I was making noise in my apartment and they called the police. But I said, why? She said, didn't do anything. But it's just, it's just the way that the police are, they just want to put you in difficult situation for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Well, without knowing the details, Task Force Decide, do you think that that's something that we should research further? like not just task force member Step Rock's scenario, but there is that enough of a story that raises an alarm that maybe more cases than just his. So I don't know.
I agree. It started to make me wonder, like, what I just want to acknowledge, I'm so sorry that happened to you, Jorge. This is horrible and traumatic, and people should not experience that, period. And certainly I'm grateful for you sharing so that we can figure out how that doesn't happen in our city. If we can figure it out, we'll be ahead of so many other places. But I do think it is on us to be thinking about it. So I'm just sitting with that, period. But yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, I think that it's something, frankly, that the other task subcommittee members probably would be interested in exploring further too. I think the question for me is sort of, what direction to go in from there once we do dig in further. I think we've talked a little bit about this, but I am wondering what the role of citizens oversight commissions are in the context of West Hollywood. Like, what is I know it's been a long time since we've had the sheriff talk to us, but I feel like we asked some of those questions, and I don't know that we have the data on what's going on there.
Yeah, I wonder if he's the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of I have to say, so the emotion that I'm feeling is I went from feeling sad with you to feeling angry.
Yeah.
I have to say that I am now feeling this motion of anger more so than anything else. So I apologize that I wasn't human in my response. Task Force Member Sabrak. Task Force Member Vilas, do you want to say anything?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. So Task Force Member Desai, I was wondering if you had looked into SB 357, which is a Senate bill in San Francisco, which deals with decriminalization of sex work. I don't know if you're familiar with that or if you've read about that or seen that.
I think that's what we were just looking at with you, right, Jasmine, in our last meeting? That's
Amazing.
what I was making soft reference to, because I didn't want to quote the wrong number. But yeah, anyway, feel free to share more about that. So, but it is on radar at a high level.
Yeah, so basically it would prohibit law enforcement from using loitering as an evidence of sex work, which I think is kind of in line with what happened to Task Force Member Seth Rock, is the fact that that's basically what they kind of pinned him for, with the fact that he was loitering around, not being a sex worker.
Right.
So I just thought that would top of mind. It's like, okay, maybe that's something to explore and kind of look into and see what aligns with what we're doing, or maybe even taking away language from that, seeing how formulating some sort of a bill of our own or some sort of legislation or law of our own in our city.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's where, by the way, you just hit on a point in terms of like proposing a bill of our own. I think that's where I'm trying to figure out where our point of entry is. Is it endorsing that legislation, which we might be doing already, but like, or is it what opportunities do we have to propose policy? I don't totally.
All right. Ms. Silvano, I'd love to hear from you. Good timing as always. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Task Force Member Desai, you may know about this already, Jasmine may have shared, but about a year ago, I think Councilmember Erickson, and I'm trying to remember if there was another council member on it or not, but I know it was Councilmember Erickson initiated an item to make sex work a low priority in West Hollywood. So obviously, we have the Sheriff's Department, and this is something that is state law. So it's not something that the city can necessarily change. but because it's now a low priority for enforcement for the sheriff's department, it's not something that they're actively pursuing in terms of enforcement. So that is an action that the city has taken. And I think we are right in terms of a possible next step would be to support currently proposed or future legislation that addresses this issue. It could also be to lobby at the county level for changes. But I just wanted to kind of let you know some past action that the city has taken in regards to that topic.
So really appreciating what the full range of what you have shared, which is just excellent consideration from many angles. And when we think about the potential recommendations that can come forward, like the Economic Development Task Force, there are multiples. There are several elements you've mentioned, which you all may find worthy of endorsing. There is also that notion of meeting gaps and in equity language, I would say efforts that could help right the wrongs of the past. And so creating support systems and monetary supports perhaps that facilitate and assist those who are still struggling with the residual effects of what was illegal, but even though it's now legal, carries with it that continuing detrimental impact and how you could help to alleviate that. So just really appreciating the many and varied angles that you all as a subcommittee are really approaching this from. I could foresee multiple recommendations evolving from your work.
Great. Thank you all for a lively topic. With that said, moving on to the item number 8 on the agenda. Are there any items from staff? This time is set aside for city staff to provide updates to Social Justice Task Force on any items of interest for the task force. So perhaps Ms. Duckworth, do you want to?
Yeah, just a quick reminder, I've met with all of the subcommittees and I know I have my assignment and getting more information back from city staff. So I'm still working on that. Once I get updates, I'll provide them to each of the subcommittees individually. But aside from that, I don't think I have anything else.
No, that's great. We appreciate the work that you do. So thank you. In addition, so item number 9, this is the second time for us to have public comment. So with that said, I'll go through the same comments I said earlier. This time is set aside for public comment. The public is given the opportunity to address Social Task Force on any item within its responsibility pursuant to the Brown Act. The Social Justice Task Force cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. Each speaker will be allotted 2 minutes and time will be limited or increased based on the discretion of the task force. This public comment period is to address the Social Justice Task Force on agenda items and or items of general interest within a jurisdiction of the Social Justice Task Force. If there's anyone who didn't sign up to speak and wish to provide comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. And it does look like we have a few unrecognizable names. So perhaps maybe there might be someone who might want to speak.
I did get an email from a community member, and I believe his name is Robert. Robert, if you did want to speak, feel free to unmute yourself if you want. If not, totally fine.
community member Robert, if you'd like to say something, feel free. Otherwise, we'll move on to item number 11. Going once, going twice.
Sorry. I don't have anything at the moment. Well, I'm just listening. Sorry, I was a little late. I couldn't find the link, but I'm just listening and trying to play catch up. But thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Sometimes there's a lot to digest as well. Yes, Task Force Member Seprock. You might be on mute.
Yeah, it's something about safety, the Commission for Safety, not for, for safety group. We noticed that in West Hollywood, the most expensive buildings, they have good security. To get in there, you have to have a password or something. They are safe. But what about the rest of the buildings? I think that the landlords need to start putting more protection in every house, every department, because they just get the rent, and they don't take care of the safetyness of the rent. Sometimes we have open buildings, people just can walk in whenever they want and nobody cares. But of course, the expensive buildings have all the security that they need, but what about the rest? We all pay rent. We need to make landlords to spend more money and the safetyness of the tenants.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on there.
Thank you for that comment. Is that that seems to be directly in line with, I think, both the economic development and then also with public safety. So I think that's probably something for us both to note. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but thank you for your comments, Task Force Member. Are there any additional task force liaison reports? We are now jumping to item number 10. All right. So moving on to item number 11. So this is a chance to talk about additional items for task force members and subcommittee reports. So I know that we have heard from 2 of the 3 subcommittees. It would be great to hear from our Human Social Services subcommittee. And I don't know, Task Force Member Morton, if you want to speak, or Task Force Member Seprock.
Reminder, so for the next task force meeting, Diane will kind of go through the same prompts that she has for the Economic Community Development and Public Safety Committee with the subcommittee, with the Housing and Homelessness subcommittee as well. So we probably will have like that larger conversation with that subcommittee at the next meeting, but they're also more than free to.
Yeah. Oh, Jorge, unless you want to jump in here, I have the notes in front of me. I think that we just really wanted to know what programs and who we talk to about when it comes to homelessness, social services. We want to know what programs are really already in place and if we need to build off them or if we need to reinvent the wheel altogether. I know that we talked about who we'd like to speak with everyone from, I don't have my glasses on, but from Saban Clinic to Project Angel Food, the LGBTQ Center, because we know that the city does have programs in place, but like if you're doing something like Project Angel Food or things like that deliver meals and things like that, it gets a little sketchy as to if our unhoused neighbors have addresses and how that food is distributed, how do people know what services are available, and so we just want to be really clear before we make any type of suggestions going forward. And yeah, I think Jasmine or Jorge, did I miss anything? Just we're going over, we want to be really thorough in our recommendations, so we're going to hear from some people and then go from there.
And just to ask a point of curiosity and maybe a follow-up to your question, are you going to have someone from Project Angel Food speak to the subcommittee, or would it be to the task force as a whole? Subcommittee, right?
Subcommittee, and it's LBGTQ Center, Project Angel Food, the Saban Community Clinic, and the JPS Community Food and Reassurance Program. So we have all of those people we look forward to hearing from.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, it was essentially because that's part of my assignment.
We love you.
It's mutual. So we talked about the programs that the city and resources that the city is already offering, but there were specific questions that the subcommittee members had in regards to whether or not, I think it's Project Angel Food delivers food to folks. And I think Task Force Member Morton asked whether or not the members of our unhoused community can participate in those services. So just questions like that about how far reaching the resources are, we figured it would probably be best for representatives of those organizations and nonprofits to come to the next subcommittee meeting. So that way we can have that conversation and dialogue before they try and build on what the city is doing.
Exactly. And I also think that we wanted to know what wraparound services for mental health, rental assistance services, food, employment assistance, job creation. We also wanted to know things about temporary housing and shelters until you get to permanent housing. So we're just trying to figure out whether it's more resources that we need or if we have to create programs with the resources that we have.
Appreciate any additional comments from any of the subcommittees or task force members as a whole? All right. Well, I guess it comes to a time when we need to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for the discussion. Very fruitful forward. And we'll adjourn to our next regular meeting on Tuesday, March 22nd at 6 p.m. which we held via teleconference again. So look forward to seeing you guys and hearing your voices. So be strong.
Happy end of Black History Month, everybody.
Boom. It's never the end. Every day is Black History Month.
That's right.
Boom. All right.
Bye, everyone.